All right, we're going to have a very important video today. We're going to talk about these new upcoming changes that potentially could happen for Alliance War. There was a playtest. It's actually the second playtest of the new war system. Everything that we're going to talk about in this video is subject to change, and we're going to talk with Reminex. How you doing, my guy?
Oh, much better. I'm able to complete coherent thoughts these days.
Yeah, first things first, how are you doing? I've talked to you on the phone several times in the last couple of weeks, and you were a train wreck, mentally and physically. You sound like a million times better. Tell us how you're doing and tell me what happened and what's going on with you.
Yeah, so I contracted COVID for likely a second time, even though I was vaccinated. My family all got it. We were largely unscathed, except for myself, where I just basically was brain fog, and it's the best way to describe it. I couldn't basically commit to any coherent thoughts. If you saw any of my videos over the past few months, I apologize. I did attempt to make some content, but it was just not
Right.
at the bar of which I would expect it to be, and so I really backed away from it because I really couldn't have these type of conversations and complete a sentence.
Okay. So I was worried about you, legit worried about. I mean, today I
Yeah.
was like, "How you doing, man?" I'm worried about you. So anyhow, let's go over this post here that Sigma leader Barack Obama. He's the head of the cluster here, and a lot of people. You were in the playtest server. A lot of
Mhm.
other people were. I'm just going to read the overview of what he posted here. We'll go over that, and we're going to refer back to the other one because he makes reference to the other one as well. Sigma, it was a welcome back to another playtest. This time we were able to share experience with the members, and there was the three alliances. We have been given the go ahead to share experiences. A reminder: all this subject to change, and nothing is set in stone. Playtest changes. Individual players no longer need to purchase the 2 slots for war. Instead, it'll be automatically added, meaning all players will have 10 defense slots. So this is in reference to the old version of it, where
Mhm.
we were basically all worried that we were going to have to exclusively use this currency or here. You see that I've been hoarding, right? Instead of buying Elite Fours, that this currency was going to be used to open up the last 2 slots. It looks like, and at least in this version of the playtest, they got rid of that. So I think nobody should have been saving this currency anyways, right? I mean, if you have Stark Tech to upgrade your Stark Tech, right? I mean, that's
Yeah.
like an 18-month long process. By all means, man, don't be hoarding this currency if you don't have your Stark Tech fully upgraded. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, and I think that's the big problem was, it was definitely Stark Tech is part of that upgrade or that catch up mechanic that just isn't happening. Or so people that 18 months is probably a good estimate about when you start maxing that out. And then so to double down on using that thrice weekly was a bad idea. And
Okay.
I'm glad they moved away from that. But again, that was just subject to change. I think they had to put a currency in, and they were debating what currency it was going to be. So I'm glad that it's very clear and it's been removed.
Okay, and then it says all room buffs and war ready functions were the same as the last playtest. Reference the post now. So this is something I think that's actionable today, and people need to pay attention. And this was based off of the last testing, is where there is this new feature called war ready characters. War ready characters got buffs based off of what the cargo bay and the hangar. And for a character to be eligible for those buffs, they have to be what they call war ready, which meant they have to be ISO-4 green or higher. And this remained the same. Are you
Mhm.
thinking that players that this is going to be implemented in game and people need to run, don't walk, and start upgrading their important war characters to ISO-4 today?
So I think there's going to be one of those ideas that they need to start earning the ISOs for the characters because there's a lot of things in flux. What will the meta wind up looking like by the time these, the war changes go in there? I think people need to at least be farming the ISOs. Whether or not they equip them is a different story because maybe you're repurposing teams and whatnot. So just so you know, war ready basically was additional stats for characters that had the ISO on it. So was it a large impact? I don't know. I think it varied depending what your opponent had. What your opponent prioritized as war ready and functionable.
Right.
Because I think
Well, it's a 30% stats, right?
Mhm.
Basically,
Yeah.
between there was the cargo bay now gives war ready characters 20% stats. Hangar gave 10% stats, and I just want to speak for myself. If you look at my favorite list right now, right here, favorited is Mordo. Why is Mordo favorited? Is because he's a character that I'm taking to ISO 4. Like you said, well, I already have my mortar. Well, I didn't, and
Mhm.
he's one of my key offensive teams, Hella Natural, that counters Wave 1 Avengers, and I need to get him to ISO level 4. I'm doing that today. Like, how do I say this? Please, please, please consider if you have the cores to refreshing your 50s on the ISO campaign. They literally
Yeah.
doubled the amount of green ISO that it pays out, the ions, and they actually have fragments to the basic green ISO, basically, right? I mean, this is a big deal, right?
Well, and I think what I want to say is those characters that are useful in raid and war, like a lot of these new teams, like New Warriors, seem to be
Sure.
panning out, and Secret Avengers. These are absolutely now going to be, because you're bringing them to raids, they're going to have that extra power and oomph in war too. So something to consider when you're considering what teams to invest in the future.
Okay, yeah.
Uh,
So I mean, for sure, I mean,
yeah,
I think it's a no-brainer if there's overlap with raid characters and war characters, right? I mean, it's a no-brainer, right?
yeah, and I guess the question is, depending on where you are in the game, what do you bring up? You start with those raid characters that are going to be there, and it's going to be by a byproduct of it, and then you got to figure out which war teams that you use, and then you're gonna have to make that adjustment. Do they need the extra
Right.
stats?
But
You know,
gating things behind ISO is not going away. It's not going
no,
away. I mean, they
that's right.
literally gating things behind ISO as far as the Doom raids. This war buff is green ISO 4. And we've been talking about it for a couple months now. Like run don't walk. It's at a minimum, this is going to be a thing, right? I think this is going to actually happen.
Yeah, and I guess the thing about it is I would be more upset if they didn't make these massive green changes that we had. So I'm glad that they're out in front of it, and these green ISOs are a lot more available than they were previously.
Yeah, with that 2 patches ago, it's and plus also spending that energy helps you move towards level 85 right now. So, if you want to get to level 85, I mean, I personally do the 50s every day on both the yellow campaign energy and the green ISO energy, and I feel like it's a reasonable value. And if I place high enough in the war in my arena, I don't typically run into a huge deficiency on cores. But it is what it is, right? Some people have different there are different places, right? All right. So what?
Precisely.
Now let's talk about the changes right here. Player starts with 4 energy and earns 2 energy every 2 hours. Energy cap increased to 10. Then additional spots now reward towards victory, unlike the prior playtest. So that with this last part they're talking about is that those last 2 rooms, because they went from 8 defensive rooms to 10 defensive rooms, and yet the last 2 rooms didn't count for anything like for points. But this, I imagine, speeds up the war quite a bit, right?
Yeah, so you're seeing wars could probably be completed in like probably 4.5 hours, 5 hours. Where if I guess I get so the way that it works right now is more people can attack a room, which is great because I how many times when you're streaming you're like, come on, get out of there, dude! I want to get that team, and so now there's now it's gonna be waiting for 4 people, and it's gonna move a lot more naturally. If the flow of war feels a lot better, but it's going to change, and so there's going to be some positives and negatives by the pace of war, and we're going to talk about how to like time zones down the road, how to look at your war time zone, because it's going to change where people may want to be in their time zone, right, when people address the clearing. But that's something that's going to happen, I think, organically when people experience it.
So, in what happened? What was your experience? Like, how long did the war take when in the playtest server? Were you able to do it in 4 hours? I mean, not losing and being done in 2 hours doesn't seem like a thing. I mean, I guess it's possible, but have you ever seen a war go with perfect participation and no losses, and it closes out right away?
It's
It's
almost
possible.
nearly
It's
it's almost nearly impossible unless you're fighting a shell, right?
right.
And that would be everybody buying attacks and doing the like here. But again, because of the fact that there's a rapid progression of accumulation of these attacks, and you're getting a cap at 10. So a lot of the issues that we had previously in even the regular wars are being negated, and so it's a lot faster,
Okay.
a lot less time for somebody who's running the war to maintain it.
Let me ask you this then. One of the biggest complaints that I have, and a lot of people have share, is that war is time consuming. It requires you to be on at the beginning of the war, requires you to be at the end of the war, checking in all the time. is this going to make the experience more intense or more casual? Like, what I mean by more casual, like in Galaxy of Heroes, it's an efficiency based war. It takes over place over 24 hours, but you get to do it when you want to. It's more casual, forgiving experience than what we have here in Marvel Strike Force. Does this make it more intense or more casual?
It's going to be one of those scenarios where I think it's going to feel more intense in a brief spurt. It's going to feel a lot more like these high intensity wars that we have, and I think people are going to be scheduling their active times because it goes so fast. Your globals could be gone before you get a chance to use them.
So being on at the start of the war is going to be more important now.
Well, you're going to extend the buffs with the war ready teams, but again, because the energy is going so fast, they may not be there if you're not in within the first 2 to 3 hours because the war's done in 5.
All right, so yeah, the war ready buffs are going to be tied to the cargo bay and the hangar, and so there's going to be more globals. Basically, right now the globals were like med bay, secure, or not med bay, armory and hangar. Right now, there's going to be 2 more.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 2 more, 2 more buffed rooms. All right, now and then also the cargo bay buffs affects offense and defense, or just one of the? Which does it affects both?
All stats for war ready characters. So
it's more important than the globals that we have today in some ways.
Cargo bay may become the most important room. We'll have to say.
Okay, because right now we have rooms that affect defense and rooms that affect offense, right? And this is going to affect everything as long as they have ISO-4. Okay, so cargo bay might be the most important room going forward. Very interesting. Wow.
It's interesting. There's a lot of cool stuff here. And so, just a quick overview. I know you're going to go through this, but I just want to say this. This is a second playtest. Anytime they've done a second playtest, like I think the first one, we heard it was mostly negative, right?
Yeah. There was a lot of negative feedback. And in my opinion, I got to give credit to where credit's due. This looks like an improvement in some ways, right? In some ways, this looks like an improvement. Like they got rid of some of the really horrible things from the last play test, at least. And you can speak to this. The ISO-8 play test, largely all the changes were the good. And when they actually take the time to do this if only they could get to do this with character releases, right? Oh my god. Oh my god!
I do think that they're peeling back the layer and the contact with the teams are probably expanding, and I do feel like there's a little bit more communication. Whether or not it's always accurate is basically, it's obviously sometimes I feel like they might be spread a little bit too thin.
Okay.
But I will say that I'm mostly positive. I'm not going to say this is overwhelmingly positive yet, but I think that's mostly positive. There are going to be some pain points that I think alliances will feel as they get adjusted to these new things.
So there are going to be some changes to Alliance War. They may be better, they may be worse, depending on who you are. But to be competitive, people need to start thinking about ISO-4 on their war teams. I think is the main takeaway here, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and there's 2 big things that I think that I want people to get excited about. Like the best thing that came out of these this test is the fact that if you're a leader, you can mark a room to attack, and you can also mark a room to not attack.
Right.
All right, that's huge. That's such a great tool finally in our hands. And the last piece, which is going to be great for us creating content, is going to be
practice
great
mode.
Practice mode, man. Literally, we're able to have the war buffs and actually take them on there, get the nuances of the team, get to see what the war buffs are. It was such a long time coming, and it's finally here. And this is going to be great for those guys.
Because we right now, Heroes for Hire. How do you practice against that team? How do you practice against that team?
Live in a war while you're losing because you're timing out.
Like Shang-Chi is like, oh my god, and I got to tell you, dealing with chat and a new team and trying to talk and record a video, and it's nerve-wracking. I actually kind of like it, but anyways, now we can actually practice these counters and see if they work. I think this is fantastic. So get ready for it. I think I'm glad that they're doing a play test. My gosh, it just seems so routine for a developer to do this, right? You would think.
I will tell you that this is if this becomes a norm when major changes come to the game, I think we could probably rest assured that it'll be largely positive. The community definitely feels like we had some say in this and some of the say in this.
If only they did this with RTA. If only they did this with RTA. I mean, think about it. I mean, that was a disaster. It's still a disaster. And you know what? I actually think it's okay. I'm popular opinion. I've been enjoying RTA a little bit lately. A little bit. I hate to say it because people hate that game mode so much, but actually, it's been kind of fun lately. It's kind of been fun for me.
You can't. You're ruining all the positive sentiment by bringing up RTA.
Oh my god! All right. Well, anyways, we'll have to see. All right. Be sure to head over to Reminex Challenge channel. And I'm glad you're doing better. And I hope this turns out well. I think it will.
Yeah, more content coming soon. We have some cool things. I expect. I'm excited about some of the things coming up, and hopefully we see more stuff like this playtest.
Okay. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. Keep on gaming and stay tuned. Hopefully this. When do you think this is going to come to the game?
Oh, maybe next patch.
Maybe next patch. Okay. Well, get ready. Get your green ISO-4 ready, guys.